Tonight's video is the second night on order of operations involving fractions, so our objective remains the same. I can apply the order of operations to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. This video is just another review to accompany tonight's homework, and I didn't include slides that review the order of operations, so if you need to do that, go to last night's video. I'm literally going to walk you through the 4 problems for tonight if you need. So let's take a look at the first problem. Here's how I would approach it. Of course, I know I need to use my order of operations, so I start within parentheses. And I take a look and I say, okay, what's 6 minus 1/2? Well, I know 6 minus 1/2 is 5.5. And that gets me to a single value within parentheses. Everything else stays the same. 5/6 minus 2/3 times 5.5, then your plus 3/4. So I took care of my parentheses. Next, I say, do I have any exponents? Well, I don't. So then I follow it up with multiplication and division. But I need to remember my multiplication and division happens left to right. So here I look, I say, oh, well, all I have is multiplication. So I need to take care of that multiplication. If I'm going to multiply, I need to first rewrite my mixed number as an improper fraction. So I have 5/6 minus 2/3 times 5.5. 2 times 5 is 10 and 1 is 11. That becomes 11/2 plus 3/4. Now again, I need to now take care of the multiplication. I can choose to multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You could simplify first if you wanted to. There's no need to. So that's 5/6 minus 2 times 11 is 22. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 3/4. So now I've taken care of all multiplication and division, and all I have left is addition or subtraction. So I need to handle all addition or subtraction, but I have to remember to work left to right. So I'm going to start here with my subtraction. Now that we handle signed numbers, we always know to keep, change, change. So I'm going to do my 5/6. I'm going to change my subtraction to addition, and I'm going to change the sign of the number being subtracted. So as I look at these first two fractions, 5/6 plus negative 22/6, the good news is they already have a common denominator. So I simply focus on the numerators. I say to myself, are those signs the same or are those signs different? Those signs are different. I'll find the difference. What's the difference between 22 and 5? It is 17. What do I have more of? I have more negatives. So that's negative 17 still over 6. Now I need to take negative 17 over 6 plus 3/4. I have to find a common denominator. Common denominator could be 12. So I'll multiply 6 by 2, which means I'll multiply negative 17 by 2. I'll multiply 4 by 3, which means I need to multiply the 3 by 3. To get equivalent fractions. So 17 times 2 is negative 34 over 6. Oh, I'm sorry, not over 6. Ooh, my common denominator is actually 12. So negative 34 over 12 plus 9 over 12. And I say, are those signs the same or are those signs different? Those signs are different. I'll find the difference and then keep what I have more of. The difference between 34 and 9 is 25. I have more negatives. I will keep the negative over my common denominator of 12. I'll tell you, this is not only a problem on tonight's homework, but this is number 2 on this week's CR. So if you can just write these steps down clearly on your CR, you already know you have that one correct. We're moving on. Let's take a look at this problem. So again, with my order of operations, the first thing I need to do is work within parentheses. So I look within parentheses here and I say, oh, I already have a single value. I then look within parentheses here and I say, oh, I already have a single value. So those parentheses really don't make a difference. So it's really just 1/2 plus negative 1/2 plus 1/4 minus a negative 7/6. And the reason I rewrote it without parentheses now is because I noticed in class students wanted to do something when they had parentheses around a number. But if there's already a single number there, those parentheses really don't mean anything. They'd only mean multiplication if there was no other operation in front. But because there's a subtraction here, that's subtraction. Because there's addition, that's addition. So then I'd go left to right, because addition and subtraction happens left to right. So 1/2 minus 1/2, hey, those are additive inverses. Those two will actually zero out. So I really just have 1/4 minus a -7/6. In order to handle this subtraction, I know I need to keep, change my subtraction to addition, and change the sign of the number being subtracted. So now it's 1/4 plus 7/6. I have to find a common denominator. My common denominator would be 12. When we add or subtract, we always need a common denominator. So because my common denominator will be 12 between 4 and 6, I'll multiply 4 by 3, which means I multiply that 1 by 3. I'll multiply 6 by 2 to get 12, which means I'll multiply 7 by 2. So we have 3 twelfths plus 14 twelfths. Well, what's 3 plus 14? Signs are the same. I'll find the sum. That's 17 over my common denominator of 12. What did I have more of? I only had positives, so that answer is positive. I then look at this and I say to myself, okay, this isn't improper. I'd like to rewrite it as a mixed number. 12 goes into 17 once, and there's 5 left over. So it's 1 5/12. And that's number 2. We're moving on. For number 3, we're going to work this one out. We're going to start with in parentheses. We need to come up with a single value. Because this is a subtraction, I need to find a common denominator. Well, -1 is the same as -1 over 1. What would my common denominator between 1 and 3 be? Oh, it's 3. I just multiply numerator and denominator of this first fraction by 3 over 3. So I have -1 minus 6 in parentheses. That's a -3 over 3 minus 1 over 3. Outside of the parentheses here, I still have plus 2. Continuing to work within parentheses, I'm like, oh, this is a subtraction. What do I need to do with subtraction? I need to keep, change my subtraction to addition, and change the sign of the number being subtracted. It had been a positive 1/3. I'll make it a negative 1/3. Still within parentheses, and everything else remains the same. So you'll notice as I model this, I'm rewriting the entire expression again. Again, within parentheses, I look at my numerators now that my denominators match. And I say, are those signs the same or are those signs different? Those signs are the same. I'll find the sum. The sum of 3 and 1 is 4. What do I have more of? I have more negatives. So it's -4 over 3. Still on the outside, I have -1, minus 6, and then plus 2. And so now here's the key. The reason I kept the parentheses around the -4 over 3, even though I got a single value, is because in front of that parentheses, no operation appears. So I have to say, what is that operation? Oh, if no operation appears, I know to assume it's multiplication. So therefore, I have to handle this multiplication before I can do my addition or my subtraction. So that 6 is 6 over 1. Multiplying straight across the top, straight across the bottom. 6 times -4, a positive times a negative is a negative 24 over 1 times 3 is 3. Here I still have this subtraction sign. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. I still have this -1. I need to bring that down. And I still have this plus 2. So I need to go ahead and bring that down. Now here, as I look at this problem, I have a subtraction. I have an addition. This fraction bar means division. So if I can do that division, I will. Well, can I divide -24 by 3? I sure can. What's negative divided by a positive is a negative. 24 divided by 3 is 8. I still have this subtraction sign. So you'll see here, how many negatives were running around at this point? Oh, there's 2. How many negatives are still running around? Oh, there's 2. How many negatives are still running around? Oh, there's 2 in that section. So I have -1 minus this piece became -8 and then plus 2. And now I handle all addition and subtraction moving left to right. So I have -1 minus a -8. Oh, I need to keep change. So I keep the -1, I change my subtraction to addition, and I change the sign of the number that was being subtracted. I'm going to continue this up here. So that becomes -1 plus 8 plus 2. What's -1 plus 8? Are the signs the same or the signs different? Signs are different. I'll find the difference. I'll keep what I have more of. The difference between 8 and 1 is 7. What do I have more of? I have more positives. So that's a +7 plus 2, and 7 plus 2 is 9. I think we have one more problem to work out tonight. All right, last problem. I need to start by working within parentheses. So within parentheses, if I want to take -4/3 and add 1/2, I need to have a common denominator. Because when we add or subtract, we must have a common denominator with fractions. What would my common denominator between 3 and 2 be? It would be 6. So I'd multiply 3 by 2, which forces me to multiply this 4 by 2. I'd multiply 2 by 3, which forces me to multiply this 1 by 3. To recreate these as equivalent fractions with a common denominator, you must multiply the numerator and denominator by the same value, which is a fancy form of 1. So here I still in parentheses have a negative. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Divided by 5/3, and although on the state test they might use an X for multiplication, I like to change it to a dot because soon we'll be moving towards algebra, and so X's mean something different there. So now I work still within parentheses. -8 plus 3, are those signs the same or the signs different? Signs are different. I find the difference. The difference between 8 and 3 is 5. I keep my negative. So it's -5/6 divided by 5/3 times 1 3/4. Now that we've handled now that we've handled all the work within parentheses, there are no exponents, so we move on to multiplication or division, and that always is left to right. So here I hit a division first. I need to handle division. So I'm going to skip, flip, and multiply, or keep, change. So I'm going to skip this one, which means just write it down, keep that the same. Flip the second fraction, or write the inverse as 3/5. And change my division to multiplication. I still then have times 1 3/4. So I handle my multiplications from left to right. You can multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom if you choose. I'm going to do some simplification. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 5 once. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 twice. Here I have a negative times a positive. Negative times a positive will be a negative. Straight across the top, I get a 1. Straight across the bottom, I get a 2. So that's -1/2. And then I still have to multiply by 1 3/4. Okay, we know when we're multiplying or dividing, we need to rewrite all mixed numbers as impropers. So that's a -1/2 times 4 times 1 is 4 plus 3 is 7. So that's 7/4. At that point, we can multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. Negative times a positive is a negative. 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 4 is 8. Let's hope I didn't make any silly mistakes tonight. So that's walking you through tonight's assignment. Hopefully that helped. Try to have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.